Good afternoon and welcome back to College Football on Tap, brought to you by the On Tap Sports Net. I'm Chris White, joined alongside with Bruno. What's going on, man? How was your weekend?
Good, man. How are you feeling after the little surgery you had there?
My major surgery.
Major
I'm feeling all
surgery.
right.
Oh, that's
I'm
good.
a little sore. Literally sat on my couch all weekend. You've been to my house, like I don't know what they're called, like those sectionals that have like the extended footing
Yeah.
on the end of the couch. I laid there literally 94% of the weekend. I did not move, so
Well, that's
I'm
good.
getting there. But
At least you're getting your rest. I could use a good weekend like that.
I after the procedure, I came home. I don't remember what Bailey and I did, but I do remember falling asleep at like 7 p.m. and I woke up at like 6:30 in the morning the next day, and I was like, "Holy shit! Did I just sleep 12 hours for the first time in like 6 years?"
Yeah, I bet that had to feel good.
It was pretty fantastic.
From
I
time
ain't
to
gonna lie to you.
time.
You
Sorry.
you looking forward to Halloween?
Yeah, I'll be most likely working tomorrow night, but you know, uh, I've been watching all the Michael Myers that I can. I've gotten quite a bit in. I watched some last night. I woke up this morning and Halloween 6 was on. Pretty cool thing in Halloween 6 that I noticed today. Um, when Paul Rudd's character goes to the bus station, in the background, it's showing all stops because Haddonfield's in Illinois. Well, the last stop before Chicago is Oak Lawn. And I was like, hey,
Oh,
that's
no shit.
and I
That's
never
pretty
noticed
funny.
it before until I saw it today because it was actually showing like me and you used to run routes for the gaming companies. It shows Joliet and then Braidwood, and I'm like, Braidwood, that's like the most random town. um, but yeah, so
That's some pretty neat shit. Bailey and
yeah,
I have been keeping up with our scary movies as well. We're starting the Screams. I just really want to watch that TV show with Jenna Ortega. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna scroll through the Screams really quick. So we watched the first two so far. Probably knock off another one tonight.
yeah, I watched Scream 1, I believe, on Saturday night, and then I'm a big fan of all of them except for 3. 3 is pretty terrible. But I like the newer uh movies that they've made with the Scream as well. They're really good. It's just Scream 3 is just awful.
Yeah, that'll probably be today, and then we're gonna finish them off in November because with the kids and all that shit tomorrow. I don't think we'll have any TV time.
Yeah, spooky season's over, but it doesn't mean you have to stop watching the movies. I
I
might have
went
to.
to Target. I went to Target today to get Halloween candy because I knew if I bought it any earlier, there wouldn't be any for the kids.
Yeah.
And there's already Christmas trees and Christmas decorations and shit up there.
Oh yeah, that's the way it is. I know that we have one of the radio stations that plays Christmas music throughout the season. I'm pretty sure they started like November 4th. They'll start it on Saturday this weekend. So
Oh,
Hallmark's already
93.9.
yeah, Hallmark's already
Yeah.
showing Christmas movies. That started like a week ago. Because me and Nikki were making a joke about how they had like a hockey movie and now they had a Christmas football movie. I'm like, the now Hallmark movie is just trying to get me to watch their love story of Christmas, like,
You throw some sports in there and we'll sit down and watch anything.
yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, he plays football. I can see where this love story is going. This is great.
Who falls in love with a punter?
So I think for the first time ever in college football on tap history, we have started the first 5 minutes of the show without talking about any college football. But it was a very good weekend of college football as well. I know you got to enjoy it a lot more than normal because of your surgery, being able to sit down. And we were talking quite a bit throughout the day, texting back and forth when some games got interesting. I know that we even turned on the CW network to see the end of the Clemson North Carolina
Caught
State.
the end of that Clemson game.
Yeah, but the main game of the weekend that got a little extension in there because of a rain delay was the Kansas and Oklahoma game. Uh, I know you were watching along with me and Ross on Saturday morning, and I said to Ross that I think that Oklahoma is the most susceptible team to getting upset by someone. And it didn't take long for that come to fruition as Kansas was able to go out there, even without Jalen Daniels, backup quarterback Josh Beck had an insanely good game and led Kansas to a 38-33 victory.
Yeah, it seems like every time you and Ross are on together, someone predicts some crazy shit happening, and
I said Josh Beck, Jason Bean. Sorry, I'm thinking of another quarterback.
Beck, bean, tomato, potato. Yeah, Bean did some work on the ground. Running backs had some game in there. He did not look great overall under center. Not awful, roughly 50%, couple picks, little over 200 yards, but they did what they had to do. And with Dylan Gabriel not doing Heisman stuff with only 170 yards and a pick,
I mean, I
kind of saw where that wrote itself out. What's that?
I think he had quite a few rushing touchdowns. Yeah, he had 3 rushing touchdowns in that game, but
that brings me back. We're talking like they're not throwing the ball anymore.
Yeah.
When we were talking last week, like it's kind of crazy how we're seeing like, wow, he had 19 attempts last week. That's a season high now.
Yeah, definitely not the when I put out that Dylan Gabriel for Heisman a couple of weeks ago, I ended up not making the bet myself. I sat there and thought about it, and I ended up not making it because I didn't want to have to make a deposit into my account at the time that I was going to do it, and then I completely forgot to make it. So, but yeah, it was not a good showing for Oklahoma. I mean, it just goes to the randomness of the Big 12, I think, just because the Big 12 is the hardest conference for me year after year to even gamble on. And Kansas literally
just to watch.
Yeah. Kansas was a team that was dead in the water, it seemed like a couple weeks ago. They got blown out by Texas despite being in a close game without Daniels, and it ended up being a game that they were able to come out and shock the world, I guess. I mean, now they're a ranked team again, but they weren't even ranked. A 2-loss team that wasn't even ranked that's in a Power 5 conference. It's kind of not your everyday thing this late in the season. So there wasn't a lot of faith in what Kansas could do out there in general, but Kansas came out there and took care of business against Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's nice to see Kansas actually doing something. I know how high we've been on them, especially you this season. Weird highs and lows, but that was probably a good call with the no bet on Dylan Gabriel, because I know we'll get to it sooner than later, but there might be a new favorite for the Heisman. I'm seeing a lot of J.J. McCarthy's, but that's not who I'm looking towards.
Well, who are you looking towards?
It's got to be our boy over in Oregon, our Auburn transfer, Auburn legacy.
Yeah,
he put himself even more on the map than he already did.
Yeah, Oregon's really, they are who we thought they were. That game against Washington was just, it could have went either way. And now
that's like we talked about, that absolutely could have been a 2-score game or a missed field goal at the end.
Yeah, I did see that Bo Nix did have some movement this week with it. I know he was kind of like number 6 or 7 on the list, I think, after last week, but now I believe he is the 4th rated in terms of the betting odds.
I'm not sure who. I didn't look at like Bleacher Report or DraftKings, but I saw somebody had him at 3.
Yeah, I'm seeing on DraftKings Michael Penix, then J.J. McCarthy, then Jaden Daniels, then Bo Nix, but Bo Nix is down to 6-1. Jaden Daniels is 4-1, McCarthy 3-1, and Michael Penix Jr. is plus 280. So not a lot of distance between any of those guys right now in terms of the Heisman race. But yeah, well deserved. Oregon came out there and handled a Utah defense that you don't see that happen.
Yeah.
Even the week before, USC was able to put 31 up against them, but what happened on the other side, the ball made a difference there. And this is what I was calling for beforehand. Like, there was a lot of, can Oregon go out there and win the big game kind of thing? Can it get over this hump of these losses that they tend to have? And can they sit there and handle going into Utah, a place that I believe they were on a 29 game straight home win streak or something like that.
Yeah, they don't lose at home. We saw
They
plenty of those signs in the morning.
Yeah. So that's all the talk was. And I kept on saying, I said on the show on Saturday morning that Oregon has one advantage here where it could go either way on the offense versus defense side of the ball for them. But their defense is much better than the Utah offense is without Cam Rising. And that's literally what showed faith in this game is Oregon, first of all, went and punched them in the mouth right away early in the first quarter, which you can't let Oregon do that. And then
any high scoring, especially West Coast team this year, you cannot let them run away with it early. Excuse me. I think with that loss to Oregon from Utah, I think there's really a blurred line just becoming even finer and finer. That Washington and Oregon are up here. Then we have a big gap, big line, and everybody else is down here. I just don't think anyone can compete with them in the pack anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously, USC has fallen off big time. UCLA, I think they went out and beat. I forgot. I remember watching them in the late game. Yes, Colorado.
But Colorado did cover.
Good teams win, great teams cover. But no, I mean we're definitely really starting to see that divide late in the year. We're really weaning out who really isn't, them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as Notre Dame fans, obviously, like we kind of look where they are every week, and Notre Dame with 2 losses now. Yeah, both were against teams that are currently ranked, one still undefeated. Notre Dame is up to number 12 already. And they still have 4 weeks left of the regular season. Notre Dame has 3 games left themselves. So with 4 weeks left in the regular season before the bowl championship week, you're already seeing like Notre Dame is looking like a team that's going to get a New Year's 6 bowl game when this is all said and done, because as long as they win out, because all these other teams, there's still going to be more that fall down and lose. I don't think we're going to have 5 undefeated teams. Well, we definitely won't, because Michigan has to play Ohio State, but I don't think we're going to have 4 undefeated teams come the end of championship weekend. So teams are going to keep on falling. Some of these teams with 1 loss. I know this week we got LSU versus Alabama coming up, which will be a big one highlighted to see who's going to have a shot at the SEC title game.
There's another big primetime game too, because I know Notre Dame got flexed to the afternoon slate.
Yeah, I thought Notre Dame started at 11 a.m. this.
Was it? I saw is they got flexed to either 11 or 2:30.
Yeah, so they played.
I just kind of figured they were going to be 2:30.
Yeah, it's 11 a.m. this week. I looked the other day. I was looking like weeks in advance too, over the course of yesterday, and even weeks in advance, like they did every single game's to be determined pretty much start time. The only ones that were like set in place is like Michigan and Penn State, and then Ohio State versus Michigan State, like picking out who the better Big Ten games were for the NBC and Fox broadcast, as they both have deals with them. Yeah, with all that, Oregon, I believe, I don't think Washington wants to see Oregon again. And I think if Oregon plays Washington again, we're going to see a different outcome, just because ever since that game, we're not seeing the same Washington team. I feel like, I know Michael Penix jumped JJ McCarthy in the Heisman race again. I think some of that might be equated to what's happening at Michigan. I think that there's a lot of people who don't want to see Michigan succeed because of what's probably going to get taken away from them if they do go to a national championship at this point. And the Heisman winner, like God knows if it falls down on him as well. I know it's not his fault that they were doing the scandal or whatever, but you never know with the NCAA what might happen. So,
bunch of old assholes, fucking NCAA. There never stops being news out of Michigan, though. Apparently, I know. Yeah, there was a whole bunch of stuff that broke last week, but now there's talks on Michigan rescinding the contract from Harbaugh. At first, it was to get out of the contract, and then it was just the extension. Now, Harbaugh came out and said none of it's real. So something's going to happen. They're going to drop a hammer eventually, but it's just a waiting game now until they actually do. And there's something solid to report.
I full on believe that despite anything or that is being said, anything that happens, the University of Michigan has Harbaugh's back no matter what.
Did you see the NFL said that whatever the NCAA does, they're going to
I did not see
abide by
that.
it?
You mentioned it to me, and I was just kind of like, well, that seems crazy. But yeah, we'll see.
It's a little weird. Like you think, like, all right, maybe he's going to Chicago, maybe he's going to, whoever needs Pittsburgh.
It's all just a ploy to make sure that the Bears are never good.
Well, you don't have to worry about that.
Hey, man.
Zach, what's up? Yes, invested big time. Anthony, good afternoon, buddy.
Right now we have, they're the second and third pick in next year's draft. So I know that's going to change because we have to play Carolina
first. Shouldn't Carolina have the first right now? So that should be the Bears?
No, it's Arizona, I believe now.
Ah.
Yeah, I think Arizona is another one-loss team, and that has the advantage. But, the Bears have to play Carolina on Thursday Night Football next week. They're really paying for it. Thursday Night Football, getting those quality games again.
Anything to get people to watch, right?
Yeah. So, and
nobody's going to watch these clowns at noon on a Sunday. Let's force them to watch it on a Thursday.
Well, they will play the Saints on this Sunday, and then the following Thursday is when they got that game. And I already heard Tyson Bagent is starting this coming Sunday against the Saints, so he'll probably start on Thursday as well against Carolina. So at least 2 more games of the Bagency coming in. Not as impressive yesterday.
No.
Wasn't his fault, though. The defense was terrible from the get-go.
That's a sneaky Chargers team, though. You don't really know what the hell they are. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they like what we call the Blazone? Like, on paper, they should be solid, but
it's a coaching staff that doesn't know how to finish games. I like everything that the head coach there says and everything that they do until the end of games. They blow more games in the fourth quarter than anybody else. So it's just I like the Chargers. I have a Chargers jersey because I'm a Phillip Rivers guy. And yeah, man.
You could have gotten LT, you could have gotten Antonio Gates, and you go with Phillip Rivers.
He was the king.
Yeah.
Well, just
king and not pulling out, maybe.
Well, at least you won't break his record now. But yeah, obviously Oregon beating Utah was a big deal this week. Another game in the Pac-12, a team that we've been kind of highlighting back and forth, that pulled off a huge upset this week, kind of helping with that Notre Dame moving up in the rankings. Arizona, once again, beating Oregon State this week, 27-24. Arizona came out of nowhere to have this season put together over the last month or so, but they are really making teams work hard for it. And if you aren't ready to play Arizona, you're probably going to lose.
You know what's fucked up? They're still not they probably will be, but they're still technically not bowl eligible.
Yeah.
They're only 2 games over 500. I mean, who the fuck are these guys?
It's a weird team. I mean, they had to deal with these top tier Big 12 teams already this year. I think they have USC coming up, might be next week, not sure. But I was just like, oh man, there's another loss for USC.
Arizona was it USC to double overtime? Washington only beat them by 1 score.
Okay.
I believe that's who it was. Washington was only held to like 1 score. They beat somebody else, Washington State. Now they're beating Oregon State. Who the hell is this team?
Yeah, they're very interesting. They're a team that was rated in the bottom half of the top 100 to come into a year. And, as a Power 5 conference team, you kind of just don't expect to see that. And yeah, they lost to USC 2 weeks ago before beating Washington State and Oregon State. Now this week they play UCLA, another ranked team. So another ranked team that's on upset alert here because you don't want to have to deal with Arizona right now as they are tough.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got UCLA in prime time. They play Colorado the following week. They play Utah the following, and then they finish their season up at ASU. So they got 3 tough games left, but I mean, the way they've been playing, they could absolutely knock off UCLA, absolutely knock off Colorado. Utah just a little bit exposed after this week. We kind of saw, coming off a big high win, then turning into that. But I'd like to see them get bowl eligible. They should be able to take at least one of those 4. And the way they've been playing, placers and pickers, they'll throw them in something decent. People will watch that.
I'm sure they will. And, a team that might match up well for them might be the Northwestern Wildcats, as I have started to get very interested in the Northwestern Wildcats as, all the drama that they had before the season started with the head coach getting fired there because of a hazing scandal. Now Northwestern came out this past week and they handled Maryland. Maryland was a team that we all thought a couple weeks ago might be able to beat Ohio State, and they stayed with Ohio State until the 4th quarter of that game. And now Northwestern is 4-4, 2 games away from bowl eligibility with some winnable games ahead of them. And this coming Saturday, they will actually be playing Iowa at Wrigley Field, which, Northwestern.
Was it you who sent me the over-under for that?
Yeah, so it's the lowest over-under in the history of betting odds between FBS schools, 29.5. I mean, you are talking lower than what the Army and Navy game gets every year. And that game always gets a very, very low under-over as those teams obviously run the triple option and just beat the hell out of each other the whole game. It's always fun to watch, but that's the defensive football. This game, this is defensive football. And, with that, Iowa had offensive coordinator Brian Ferentz, no longer the offensive coordinator at Iowa. As you can see, the title of this episode is CFB on Tap 1, Brian Ferentz 0. Long time joking with this whole entire show from the beginning is we've talked about how Brian Ferentz has made comments towards us after they finally put up over 20 points and they
crawl out of his ass.
Yeah. And they did not put up 20 points again this year, I don't think. If they did, it was very slim. They are
you think he'd want to come on the show?
I think so. He's got time.
He's got a lot of time.
But he resigned himself as Iowa's offense has not been up to par. And then this week, Iowa will be going at Northwestern without him, despite a team that's still bowl eligible. And, that Big Ten conference is a joke. So they could still go to the Big Ten title game.
All right. So really fast, just going over what he's done here. He's won 24-14, won 20-13, so he's averaging 22 at this point. Wins 41-10, and then we are abruptly told to crawl out of his ass. Goes out the next week, loses 31-0.
Ooh.
Puts up 26 against Michigan State, puts up 20 against Purdue, puts up 15 and wins at Wisconsin. And then he loses 12-10 to Minnesota. I'm not going to sit here and do the average, but that guy sucks.
Yeah, not a very good offense there for Iowa. And if we wanted to, go back into last year as well and see how bad it was last year because it was not any good. And I don't know. I'm guessing, but the head coach at Iowa is Kirk Ferentz. Are they brothers? I would think they're brothers. But...
Is this where all the confusion's coming from? Because I'm calling him Kirk one week, then I'm calling him Brian another.
Yeah.
Ron hops in the comments. He's like, no, I'm pretty sure it's Kirk. And I'm like, well, can somebody fucking tell me what I'm doing wrong here? Because
they're both Ferentz. So I would think they're brothers. So his brother just quit on him right before Thanksgiving. It's terrible.
That's going to be an awkward holiday. You know what? That makes sense. So maybe his brother like hit him up like, "Hey, dude, you got to go. I don't want to fire you. Do you want to hand in your resignation?"
Yeah, I mean, that could be the case. They want to test out a different way of going about things these last couple of weeks of the season. So we'll see what kind of offense they bring to Wrigley Field on Saturday. I actually didn't realize that this game was coming up, but I would have liked to gone check it out, but we have a big day planned for Nikki's birthday. So, and I don't really want to freeze my ass off as it looks like it's going to start being really cold starting tomorrow. So it's nowhere.
Yeah, that's just too far for me to go for something I don't care about.
I think it would be fun just because I do want Northwestern to make a bowl game here and kind of just like after winning two games last season, everything that happened before this season started, for them to be able to rally together and get into a bowl game. I think it'd be a good story and just great for the students that are and the kids that are on that team. And I've always liked the Cats a little bit, so we'll see what happens.
I guess I don't have to hate them as much as I used to since Pat Fitzgerald's gone, but I got my own unresolved issues with that. But let's hop back into what we watched on Saturday. I know we covered Oregon, Utah, and Oklahoma, Kansas. Let's head over to the Big Ten. Ohio State, obviously, going into Wisconsin at a night game. I think they only won. It was 2 scores. They won by 10 or 14, but Wisconsin didn't look abysmal. They held on for a while, and they definitely did not let them get that first punch like we talked about so many times. That first quarter was very even keeled. I think it was 3-0 till halfway through the second or something like that.
Yeah, Wisconsin didn't give up the early touchdown to Ohio State, and they put pressure on quarterback Kyle McCord. They were able to get a couple of picks off of them. It just ended up being, I think this was Trayvon Henderson's first game back, and they had a two-headed monster there of Henderson and Marvin Harrison Jr. as Marvin Harrison Jr. continues to go above 100 yards receiving, 2 touchdown catches. Henderson had like 160-something yards rushing and a touchdown. And, Ohio State just kind of beating away at them at the end. And, that's what they're going to do with every team. I don't think they're going to go out there and be that punch first team that goes up big. Wisconsin, though, I mean, you've seen it against Iowa a couple of weeks ago. Their offense is abysmal. They just don't put up enough points. I think they almost had their quarterback throw the ball 40 times this week, and it still wasn't enough to get into the end zone enough, only scoring 1 touchdown. And when you
he threw 18 for 39, only 165 yards.
When you have playmakers like Henderson and Marvin Harrison Jr., Harrison Jr. is going to be a top 3 pick in the NFL draft this year at wide receiver. You kind of you got to be able to contain those guys, and having to contain both of them, it's very tall task. Wisconsin did as good as they could, but they will take over games even when Kyle McCord, he's throwing picks. Kyle McCord's 2 passes for touchdown were to Marvin Harrison Jr. There's a reason for that. I mean, he's a playmaker. He makes the quarterback better.
Yeah, he's a difference maker. That's a huge underline here. Well, like Locke, is that any relation to Drew Lock?
No, because I thought Drew Lock is spelled like L-O-C-K.
I thought it was L-O-C-K-E. Either way, I'm just looking over his stats here. He rushed 5 times for 14 yards. His longest rush was 29 yards. What the hell was Wisconsin's offensive line doing for him to lose that many yards? I mean, he was only sacked twice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There could have been like one of those snaps over his head that.
Sure, you got to run back 15 yards or something, but.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I don't. If he's automatically a runner, do they still consider that a sack?
I think as soon as you give yourself up, like as soon as you make like that football move, that intent to take off, but I could definitely be wrong. I usually am. Kyle McCord as well. He rushed 7 times for negative 20 yards. He averaged negative 2.9 yards per carry.
Not good.
So there's definitely something they mark these stats down in a different way. But no, I mean, Ohio State, like you said, they're not really showing you that punch in the face kind of attitude. They're playing the long haul, and it's working for them. They're looking good. I mean, Harrison, obviously, difference maker. Trayvon Henderson coming back is huge. Kyle McCord's looking better each and every week we watch him. But, man, I hate Ryan Day.
Yeah, I think that we're going to still get that fun Michigan-Ohio State game at the end of the season that will bring Ohio State back down to earth. But we'll see how much everything going on at Michigan distracts them and gets – I don't know. It's so hard to talk about Michigan. It's just disappointing. But
what sucks is we still have 2 weeks until they play a real opponent.
Yeah, it's
like I don't give a shit. Like they didn't play this week, right? They were on a bye.
Yeah, they were on a bye this week.
Yeah, next week they play Purdue. Like who cares? Sorry, Purdue.
Yeah.
And then they finally play Penn State at fucking noon. Like, how do you do that? It's got to be big noon or game day there.
Yeah, it's the big noon.
It's got to be big noon there.
Yeah, it's big noon.
And then they play Maryland at an undisclosed time at Maryland, which obviously doesn't matter anymore. And then finally they finish off like always with Ohio State. But still, to this day, we're going into week 10, and their toughest opponent has been Rutgers.
Yeah, and I believe
it's going to be an eye-opening couple of weeks, but unfortunately, we're still going to have to wait.
Yeah, well, Ohio State gets Rutgers next week, so look out for that one. Upset alert going into New Jersey. So,
well, what's kind of baffling to me, like obviously we know Ohio State could ball the fuck out, but what happens? 2 or 3 bad drives in a row, couple picks, a fumble, a 3-and-out and a blocked punt, a fumble, a blocked punt, and a pick. Like they're kind of like treading dangerous waters every week. They're keeping their head above water every week, but obviously we see every week these teams that have no business winning, like Arizona, kind of just doing their thing and squeezing in there.
Yeah, and I mean it's very possible. Like I said, you could be on upset alert this week, even with Rutgers, because Rutgers has played everybody pretty good. They're 6-2 coming into that game, and they're at home. It's probably going to be the best atmosphere that they've had at that school for a football game in quite some time. So everybody wants to knock you off. So if you aren't prepared and you make those mistakes, Kyle McCord, you might not get away with those mistakes come playing any type of decent team. So at the same time, they do have those guys that are able to get those big chunk plays, something that you saw that Penn State was not able to do against them. Speaking of which, Penn State, almost taking down a loss to Indiana this week.
Yeah.
Indiana had them scared there late, but Drew Eller actually threw the ball over 30 yards, and look what happened. Yeah.
That's crazy how that works, right?
So it was like the thing that we were calling for them to be able to do against Ohio State, they did it in order to pull away and win against a 2-win Indiana team.
Maybe that's why Penn State's defense is so good, just because they take 6 minutes off the clock every touchdown drive they have. They're always well rested.
Yeah. Joe in the comments, go blue. Glad to see that you guys are still out there supporting the school and everything going on right now, because I got in uncertainty in life, buddy.
Was it you, Joe? Were you the one in the stands?
He got paid to go see some Purdue and Indiana.
Some absolute dog shit. Hey, can you
Illinois,
go watch Purdue and Iowa? Yeah, I'm sick actually. I'm gonna call off this week.
Come on, man.
Seriously, you want me to sit through fucking Purdue and Iowa?
Yeah, so Penn State, I don't have any faith that they're going to be competitive with Michigan. at this rate. I think them losing to Ohio State was like an exposure thing. And now I think that I think you lost your mic there.
Oh, my bad.
But yeah, I think that it's Penn State kind of got exposed a little bit there against Ohio State. It's going to be tough for them to compete with Michigan in a couple of weeks. And I think Indiana just made them look a lot worse because this was a 31-point spread. And I joked around on Saturday morning saying teams that are ranked number 10 always lose because it's kind of true. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, if I missed out on putting money on this money line when it was a 31-point spread, kill me. Like
Oh fuck, man! That I remember listening to that, and I, like you had mentioned earlier, I didn't want to put any money in my DraftKings account just because I've been so fucking bad lately. I was like, I was thinking about it because it was Oregon, and there was another team too, right? That was a 10 seed that couldn't hold on.
Yeah, I think it like Louisville lost to Pitt as the 10 seed, I believe.
But no, that definitely that would have been a fucking wild money line. I don't even know what that would have been.
Yeah, I can't think of like a number that would be fair to even guesstimate, but I'm guessing,
Is that it's got to be one of those games where they're just like, we're just going to put a little lock on it because the off chance they lose, we're just going to get, obviously fucked up real bad money wise.
Don't lock the plus team though, so I think that it would have been like near 40-1 just because I know you get like plus 240 when it's a 7-point. So maybe like 18-1. 18-1 maybe makes more sense.
I could have used that.
Yeah, for sure. But it didn't happen anyway. So it's all right. But would have been a good
God damn you, Penn State. You already lost one. Stop ruining the rest of our dreams.
Another game that this week that really we were a big fan of the Duke boys this year, but their chances at the ACC title have pretty much completely dwindled. They would need a lot of help to get there now as they went down 23-0 to Louisville, could not score. Riley Leonard did play. It didn't look like he was capped much in terms of his legs and being able to use them, but he was not able to get anything going against Louisville. Louisville's tough at home. We've seen it a couple of times this year now. So they failed against Pitt, did not look good against Pitt, a team that Notre Dame beat 58-7. You just
was I talking to you about it? The fucking frustration, like Notre Dame beats Duke in a very tight game. Notre Dame loses to Louisville. Louisville loses to Pitt. Notre Dame beats the shit out of Pitt. Like, what kind of fucking sad vortex are we living in? Because the way things are wrapping up, a one-loss team to Ohio State, should they beat Michigan, they already hurdled at Penn State. Like, where would we be in the college football playoff eyes right now? So
that's why it's so hard to bet on college football this year because it doesn't make any sense. Nothing makes sense. It's just like, okay, yeah.
See Phil Jerkovic out there at tight end?
I didn't. I did see.
I didn't either, but my dad texted me. He's like, I heard he's suiting up at tight end this week. They're going to roll with a 2-quarterback system, and they moved him out. I mean, he's a big dude.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
Tried it. Yeah.
Fucking lanky motherfucker. Not too much muscle, but he'll get up there. He'll get vertical. Yeah. Duke really broke my heart, though, man. I like them a lot. What's their coach's name? Like Mike Elko or?
Yeah.
He was Notre Dame's DC X amount of years ago, I think, right? Or a linebackers coach or something.
Yeah, he has some ties.
Yeah, and especially now because the ACC just got boring as shit with Drake May going down again.
Yeah,
so
in North Carolina.
Obviously, it's Florida State territory now, so
it seems like it's going to end up being Florida State versus Louisville in the ACC title game if we were to take a guess or take a stab at it right now. So I like it, I guess. I think Louisville could be competitive with Florida State, but at this point, I think Florida State is got a pretty cakewalk to the at least the ACC championship game and probably the college football semifinal. I don't know if Louisville in a neutral environment will be able to go and take down Florida State. Florida State will. I know Louisville fans will travel and they'll have both sides of that
Oh
stadium.
yeah, big time.
It's a tall task right now considering Florida State's ability to just kind of take games over late in the third, fourth quarter, as they've done numerous weeks in a row now. They keep things close, and then they seem to make the better adjustments, and they end up pulling out ahead of everybody, no matter who the opponent is. So
obviously, you know, they've had a couple of good wins, a couple of like bigger wins. They've remained undefeated. They're getting first place votes in the AP for weeks now. I feel like they're one of the quieter top teams in the league, though. Like, they just don't get talked about too much.
yeah,
Obviously, that comes with being in the ACC instead of the SEC or Big Ten. But
I think it's also because their opponents are not top tier. The only opponent that they had that was top tier was LSU at the beginning of the season, and then pretty much down the line, I mean, even having to play Clemson, Clemson's not the same. I mean, Clemson's 4-4. I think I was texting.
it was a little different. Didn't they play them in like week 4?
Yeah, it was early in the season.
At that time, it was a little different.
Yeah, but they still were not ranked. And by the time they played Syracuse, like Syracuse started the year off hot. Syracuse had their fall. Duke was playing with a hurt quarterback. And now all they got left, I mean, granted, they get Miami and Florida, but I think even Miami right now, they're just Miamiing again. I think they might have lost again. Or did they win last week? Oh, they did beat Virginia, but they only beat them by 3. So,
Miami is Miami's own worst enemy.
Yeah, pretty much. They could be 7-1 right now, and maybe we'd be looking at that game differently. But that's coming up. We got next week's slate is actually like there's a lot of good games. I mean,
yeah. Obviously, Notre Dame Clemson isn't as big as we all had hoped, but I mean LSU Bama. I remember I said earlier I can't think of it, but there's another big 6:30, 7:30 game going on next week. It's going to be a fun slate, fun day.
I'll tell you right now, looking ahead, like lock in the number now before it moves. Notre Dame is a 2.5-point favorite against Clemson. I don't understand. I get it. I understand.
Alt spread that bitch.
Notre Dame should beat the shit out of Clemson. Notre Dame over the past couple of weeks is much better than what they were at the beginning of the season.
It's that narrative that Notre Dame can't win big games, and why this is considered a big game, I don't know. But it's still Dabo Swinney. You know, there's history there between, you know, was Freeman the DC or was he still in Cincinnati in 2019? It's like right on the cusp, but you know, there's history between these teams. I wouldn't say a hatred like when we talk about USC, but they're gonna play them tough.
It's just based off since Notre Dame ended up getting into the 5 conference or having to play the ACC conference 5 times a year, and how good Clemson has been over the past, and there's been 3 or 4 big games against them over the last 7 to 8 years or so. Like there's been a couple, like there's been times where Clemson's been the team that we're circling, which wasn't normally a thing as we grew up. We never played,
right?
Never cared. I don't think too many people cared about Clemson, and until Dabo and Trevor Lawrence and everything that they've been able to do with the quarterbacks flux that they've had there, it's just that kind of idea that these teams are rivals now, because the Notre Dame rivals over the past couple of years have just kind of changed because of the new formatting of scheduling, not having Michigan and Michigan State every year anymore. You know, we've seen Ohio State more than we've seen Michigan lately, which is different. So maybe a good thing in a way, but we're not being Ohio State anyway.
No. I know we kind of been Swarbrick as his last few favors. You know, we played Georgia home and home. What was that, like 4 and 5 years ago? Now we have Ohio. Then we did Michigan, then Ohio State, and I think we have Bama coming up. 24, 25 or 25, 26.
I think that was 28, 29, honestly.
Is it that far out still?
I think it's that far out.
Because those games were announced like 4 years ago.
Yeah, I remember when it came out, and I was like, well, who the hell cares? What's up,
What's
Pat?
up, Pat? What's going on, buddy?
Man, I'm going. I don't know if I told you yet, but we're going. I know we're going to the game for senior night, but we got a room at the Four Winds down there for 2 nights for
Nice.
free. For free.
Faux free?
We got 2 rooms for free at the Four Winds Casino. So I'm trying to hold back on my gambling so that I am prepared to hopefully not lose my ass off at the casino. Because when you get
when Bailey, Caitlin, Eric, and I went to that wedding in Indiana, I used the same $100 at a roulette table for like 4 hours, and I ended up just breaking even, which was great. But it was just so much fun. Like I was like, yeah, let's throw a stack on 24. My dog's name is Kobe, and I hit, and then I was like playing just black or red for a while, and I was like, my mom's favorite number is 23. So let's throw a stack on that. Hit that, played black and red for a while. Bailey's favorite number is 20. Boom, hit that. Like it was a lot of fun. That was my first time at a casino.
Yeah, that's if you can make $100 last at a casino and you're not a big gambler, that's as good as it can be. I am stupid when it comes to gambling, and I'll be like, oh, well, here's $300. Let's not lose it within a half hour and lose it within 20 minutes. So,
well, Bailey lost like $200, $300 in the slot machines, and I'm just over here like, I know this fucking dealer's like mom's name is fucking favorite childhood pet. Like we're establishing a relationship, and Bailey's just feeding money into a machine.
Yeah, I know the feeling all too well. Unfortunately.
What are our Monday night picks? I like the Lions. I'm not going to bet anything because I'm going to go to sleep at 7:30, so I'll watch like the first half, the first quarter. But probably can't go wrong with an Amon-Ra anytime.
The Amon-Ra St. Brown is actually questionable. I'm kind of waiting to see before I put down any bets myself on that game. I know I need a big night from Devontae Adams.
Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs are like I can't believe I drafted both them motherfuckers.
I'm facing Zach Zaper in my league, and I'm winning by 6 right now, but he has Gibbs and Myers tonight, and I have Adams. So I'm asking for a lot from Devontae Adams, with Jahmyr Gibbs being the lead back now with Montgomery out. So
I lost by 2 in the league I care about, and Philly's defense put up -2. And I had Gabe Davis on my bench instead over Deontay Johnson. So I
know that we all told you to put Gabe Davis in that night too.
So I was giving Jax a bath, and the game started. Like I had it like playing on my phone while they were talking, and I'm like hurrying up, and I hear like and the kickoff, and I was like, fuck.
Oh man,
because I know every time I bench that motherfucker, he puts up 40, and every time I start him, he puts up 1. I was like, no, not today. We're doing.
You got to work on your dad skills.
Fucking scrubbing and texting. Joe, you need that luck when you go to Vegas next year. Where's my invite, buddy?
Yikes. Jeez, it's getting personal in here.
Just saying, guy goes to 2 concerts over the weekend, doesn't invite me to any of them. Now he's going to Vegas.
Damn. See you later, Joe.
All right, let's try and get back on track a little bit. The last game we really wanted to talk about was Georgia, Florida.
Yeah, not much to talk about. It's just kind of just saying everything that was a big deal in terms of Brock Bowers not being there for Georgia and how would Georgia's offense roll, and Florida just floored it again. Big game, just looked like crap out the gates. This is the first time that I think Georgia's come out and straight up dominated a team from beginning to end. So there you go. Georgia proved themselves right. I'm going to hold out hope until the boys I've been favoring all year. Next week, they play Missouri. So I'm going to hold out hope for Missouri to be the team that finally ends Georgia and keep that blind faith that I've had in this Missouri team all year. But they're 7-1, I think, coming into this game, ranked number 14 in the nation. So still a great season for Missouri coming into this already. We'll see what they do if they're able to contend with this powerful Georgia team. I still don't count Florida as the top of the line competition.
Powerful.
It's every year. It's every year, man. I don't understand why I even sat there. That was one of the losses I had this week. It was a good week overall for betting, but like I lose because I put on these teams that I should have a no, you're not allowed. And Florida should be on that list because every time Florida gets into a big game and I bet them, they look like shit. But every single time that Florida gets into a big game and I stay away from it, they're like, hey, we know how to play football now. Like they fucking did with Tennessee earlier this year. I hate that. Disgusting. Same thing for Iowa. Hate them both.
Calm down, Bruno. No Iowa talk. I don't want to get you all riled up.
Well, Brian Ferentz 0.
Beck, I mean, he looked all right without Brock Bowers out there. You know, he still threw for 300 plus, 19 for 28 and a couple touchdowns. Didn't do too much on his feet, but back split roughly 150 and 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, the offense is still moving just fine without him. We know their defense is solid, but, you know, when they're – I don't think besides for Missouri, they really have much left to do. I know it looked soft, and then obviously rankings changed as we went, and then it turned into a couple ranked matchups. But okay, so we still do have Ole Miss. I'm not really sure what the hell Tennessee is anymore, and Georgia Tech. Maybe in a month they'll still be riding that UNC high, but I don't think Georgia loses a game this year. Not in the regular season, at least.
Yeah, I mean, coming into this with Missouri next week, even they're a 16-point favorite against them. You know, I hope that Missouri finds a way to contend with them if they, you know, make it an interesting game. Definitely not go out there and get embarrassed, but this game is in Georgia. So that's kind of going to be a really tall task for this Missouri team, obviously. And even Ole Miss, when they come in, that's at Georgia. You know, they're getting the better end of their schedule at home. And then Tennessee's just like Florida. They'll get into that game and they will not know what the fuck left to right. So it's
come out of the tunnel, pumped as shit. Then you're on the sidelines looking across from them and you're like,
be like when they come out for their first game in the replacements and the guy trips over the wire and takes out the cheerleaders.
The Notre Dame equivalent. Ian Book breaking that cheerleader's nose.
Oh damn! It would be
fucking Louisville. But let's run into your non-power fives. Are they still undefeated?
Yeah, so nobody. Well, Tulane does have a loss on the year, but Tulane did end up pulling out a victory against Rice. It was 30-28. Rice had a shot with the ball under 2 minutes left. I did flip that game on and watch the end of it myself, just to see if we were going to lose one. But Tulane held on. That's a scary game. You know, Rice is decent. I think they're 4-4 now on the year, but they're that middle tier of the non-power fives. Scary game for Tulane in general, though. They almost had it all taken away from them. Air Force played Colorado State. In Colorado State, you know, me and Ross were saying on Saturday how this was going to be a tough game for Air Force to go out there and kind of roll. But overall, Air Force was the better team. They continue to impress week after week. So Air Force stayed undefeated. I believe they moved up to number 17.
Was that the game I saw they got penalized for the fans throwing snowballs on the field?
I believe
Colorado
so.
State?
Yeah, yes, because it was a little snow game in there. But yeah, Air Force ended up winning that game 30-13. It was 13-13 at halftime, though. So it was competitive for the first half, and then the second half, it was all Air Force. And I'll tell you what.
Raid.
Yeah, air raid. Air Force quarterback Zach Larrier passes 4 for 7, 32 yards with a touchdown pass. So, you know, lots of passing, lots and lots of passing.
4 for 7.
Yeah.
They run a triple option there. What do you do on the ground?
So he had 14 carries, 36 yards, and a touchdown. They had another running back with 20 carries, 130 yards, and a touchdown. And then another running back with 11 carries, 57 yards, and a touchdown. So, and they had 1, 2, 3, 6 ball carriers in general, where there was 4 wide receivers who each caught 1 football on the receiving end. So,
Okay.
but
6 ball carriers is the perfect amount of ball carriers.
Colorado State, on the other hand, their quarterback passed the ball 45 times. So you got a little bit of everything.
Okay.
But Air Force ultimately handled them. They continue to stay undefeated. So
obviously Tulane lost to Ole Miss. Fresno State, they got knocked out of the top 25. I assume that means they have a loss.
Yeah, they
Because they did sneak in there earlier in the year.
I forget who they lost to. I know it was a decent school. But they did that. They're still getting votes, but still not in the top 25 yet. And then in their game, they played UNLV last week, and that was a game that Ross and I talked about stay away from in general. And it ended up being a very tight game. Fresno State won 31-24, I believe was the final. So, and the Fresno State has a tough schedule normally towards the end of the year, playing schools that they have to play. Normally they get some Boise State action. So they still got a long haul ahead of them. And yeah, that's next week, Fresno State versus Boise State, 9 p.m. start. So a little late night football action.
Nice.
Fresno State's actual loss was to Wyoming. So Wyoming, a school that Boise State, I believe, blew out this past week. So could be on upset alert there for Fresno State.
Tough waters ahead.
Yeah,
how about your boys, James Madison, jumping USC in the rankings?
Yeah, our team that can't go to a New Year's Six bowl that might be able to go to a New Year's Six that should go to a New Year's Six bowl.
That is such bullshit. That is such a stupid rule.
Yeah, I
saw the Action Network had James Madison going to a bowl, so I wonder if they just don't know that they're not allowed, or if there's something that we're not hearing about.
Well, the exception was if there's not enough teams to that go 6-6, then they could go to a bowl game, because there wasn't enough teams to qualify to fill all the bowl games that there are. So they fill the void. But
that's stupid.
It's very possible too. I've noticed over the last couple of seasons, there's been a couple 5-7 teams that went to bowl games, and it's like, what the hell is this? Like, I don't want to see this.
Watching the Toilet Bowl live from ESPN.
So yeah, and then Toledo had a bye week this week. Toledo getting a couple of votes, and Liberty, talked about them last week. Liberty did get a big win on Tuesday. They do go back to a normal Saturday game this upcoming week. So
I believe Liberty's one of those teams that are just outside the top 25 receiving votes, but just not in there.
Yeah, and we'll continue to monitor them as they go through. But right now, it's kind of up to the Air Force. If the Air Force runs through their schedule the rest of the way, it's theirs. I mean, they're ranked 17th right now. I was actually looking at something earlier that was kind of saying, like, if the season were to end today and the new playoff format that goes into effect next year were in play, that Air Force would be the 12th seed, because one team has to get into
non-power 5, right?
So it would be Air Force getting in, and they would be playing.
How would that would they be playing 5, or would they be playing 1?
They'd be playing 5. So 1 through 4 all get a bye into the quarterfinal, and then the 5 through 12s all play each other. So Notre Dame would be one team away from getting into the playoff right now,
because they're currently sitting at 12, right?
Yeah, so they would need to
get bounced out for a non-power 5 team.
Yeah, so something that, when I sat there and saw this earlier, I was just like, well, that's really depressing. Like, like you're telling me that you could be watching them in a playoff this year. I'm kind of down now. So
bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Notre Dame's good at football again. This is all bullshit.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Notre Dame losing Mitchell Evans with the torn ACL coming out of Saturday's game, a big loss for them, though. I know that they did last week, though, just did get their another tight end back that they're very excited about. So it might be something to look out for. I can't recall his name right now, but Notre Dame does produce tight ends like no other. So, I mean, maybe Iowa Iowa knows how to produce tight ends as well. But other than that, Notre Dame is tight end university. So we'll see how they replace Mitchell Evans going forward. Definitely didn't want to lose them before what's probably the toughest game left on the schedule out of the 3 games they have remaining in Clemson. So unfortunate news there for the Irish.
Xavier Watts having another hell of a game, though. He's really making a case.
2 more picks. God.
I mean, he's either a senior or a 5th year, so he's really making a case for coming out.
Yeah.
He's,
good for him. And
pretty good.
And he'll be one of those guys, because I keep on looking at it. Notre Dame and LSU are right next to each other. I know that will likely change with LSU playing Alabama, but Notre Dame and LSU are right next to each other in the rankings. So
I can't wait for Friday to spend 10 minutes talking about, do I want Alabama to beat LSU because fuck Brian Kelly, and or do I want LSU to knock Bama off, but then Brian Kelly gets to boast with another Bama win. So I'm not going to sleep much this week.
Yeah, it is something that's definitely up for debate. I've kind of thought about it back and forth myself.
The lesser of 2 evils.
What do I do?
All right, let's jump into the top 25. 1 through 5, not making any changes. I believe Michigan got a couple more first place votes. I'm not sure how that happened with them coming off a bye. But Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Washington staying put. Oregon moving up 2 after that win at Utah. So,
yeah, I don't understand how Michigan got the votes. I kind of noticed that yesterday when the poll came out. I didn't get how Michigan ended up getting more votes when Georgia ended up playing their probably most well put together and solid performance season. So it's like, so Georgia finally looked good, but whatever. We'll see what happens there. Oregon, I think right now is that team that deserves to be in. If there's 3 undefeateds at the end of the year, I think Oregon will probably end up. They're going to play Washington for that right, I believe.
If you play Washington in the Pac-12 championship and the same outcome happens, but Oregon wins this time by a walk-off field goal, personally, who do you want in the playoff?
Oregon.
I'm thinking Oregon too, and I'm completely changing my tune from just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I have a bet down that Washington wins a national title, and I still at this point would rather have Oregon in there just in terms of entertainment value. I just enjoy Oregon's football in general. I love their defense.
Reality TV.
I like Bo Nix, and Washington over the last couple of weeks, they've just kind of made me kind of meh on them. Kind of just makes me think that
there's bad taste in your mouth. Like, are you a true number 5?
Like, it's just, are you soft? Are you not soft? And that's just kind of where I am with it. We'll see kind of going forward. They play USC this week. So I'm not saying USC is going to beat them by any means, but we'll see how they perform against USC just because they haven't looked great against many teams level 8. So
how do you write fuck Washington on your fingernails?
I don't know, man. Just
too many letters. It's too many letters. Number 7 is Texas not moving. Alabama and Penn State 8 and 9 both moving up 1. Didn't Alabama have a bye week as well?
Yes, I don't.
Oh, you know what? That's got to come with Oklahoma losing.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And then number 10, it's Oklahoma dropping 4 spots, 7 and 1, still over 1,000 votes.
Kind of expected. Some of these 7 and 1 teams aren't going to lose their spots here to the 7 and 2s and 6 and 2s of the world quite yet. So,
right. Obviously Texas is where Texas is for a reason. It's just kind of, we've talked about who puts this list together. It's just kind of fucked up with how it goes. Like,
oh yeah, like you got Texas who's ahead of Oklahoma, who Oklahoma beat Texas earlier in the year, and then you got Louisville behind Notre Dame. Louisville's only got 1 loss on the season though, but Notre Dame destroyed Pitt. but Notre Dame's ahead of them with 2 losses, even though both their losses were to this ranked Louisville team and the number 3 team, Ohio State. It's hard to reason with it because it's literally the way that the poll works is, say Notre Dame drops 7 spots after losing 1 week, it instantly turns into the following week of what have you done for me lately? And that's kind of where everything comes into play. Plus, you do got to take into effect that Notre Dame had the toughest schedule in the nation. Prove me wrong.
I know, but I mean, this is the AP Top 25. Put out a separate power rankings list.
It's an idea. We'll see what the college football playoff poll ends up saying. I think that comes out next Tuesday is the first one.
Oh, is it next week?
Well, because next Monday is the first regular season college basketball games. So
and they're going to announce it at halftime or whatever.
Yeah, they normally do it at halftime for the first week because I think on Tuesday they normally have 2 powerhouses play each other to kind of open up the season.
All right. Drake May.
This guy's messed up.
Yeah, I was looking at Ole Miss. I have no idea where Drake May come from. Ole Miss up 1 spot, Notre Dame up 2, LSU up 2, Missouri up 2.
Yeah,
all kind of just hanging around. Notre Dame obviously put a real beat down on them. Who did Ole Miss play this week?
Vanderbilt. Yeah, Vanderbilt.
Yes, and Ole Miss beat the piss out of them. LSU was on a bye, and Missouri played. They were the big.
They were on a bye this week.
Big 12 team, didn't they? Oh, they were on a bye.
Weren't they on a bye? I know that their last game was against South Carolina, and they blew them out. That was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I'm all over the place today.
Oh, man. It's cool, man.
Louisville moved up 3 spots.
Yeah,
with a nice round 6-6-6. I like it.
Yeah, they deserve to move up with the way they dominated Duke. They're one of the better 7-1s out there. Going to be an interesting week with ability for them to even move up further as Missouri plays Georgia and LSU plays Alabama. So a couple of teams ahead of them that they could probably jump in front of. Notre Dame does play Clemson. I don't want to write Clemson off just because that'd be so Notre Dame of us. But and Oregon State only dropping 5 spots after that loss. I want to say that's just because Arizona is making everybody hurt. I see that Arizona is even getting votes now to be in a top 25. So,
yeah, would they be the first 5-3 team? Yeah, they would be.
Yeah, North Carolina's got 2 losses. Oklahoma State has 2 losses, I think. Liberty's undefeated. Fresno State's got 1 loss. Miami's got 2 losses. Rutgers has 2 losses as they get a couple of votes, but they got to play Ohio State this week. So see what happens.
Your boys in the Mountain West, Air Force undefeated still, moving up 2 spots from 19. Utah obviously plummeting their 5 spots after their loss, their very surprising loss.
Yeah, they got blown out by Oregon. Tennessee 6-2, number 19.
The Blatt area. I know we talked about it earlier. I'm still just a little in shock how they picked that Utah defense apart.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't expected by any means, but I kind of did think that was the more likely option of if anything was going to happen in that game, or Utah was going to have a shot to win it late and possibly pull it out. But I didn't think it was either going to be Utah wins it late or Oregon blew them out, in my opinion, and that's what happened there.
Yeah, Tennessee, like you said, somehow staying alive.
They beat Kentucky by 6. It's actually really, really grinding my gears. I went to the movies on Saturday night. Me and my fiance went and seen the original Halloween at the theater with a nice little dinner and all that stuff that we have a waiter or whatever at Hollywood Boulevard. And
Hollywood Boulevard's awesome.
Yeah, it was a cool time. And I was looking at my phone and noticed like that game going back and forth. Well, I had a 5-leg parlay and I had Kentucky +4, and that was the only one that didn't hit for a $346 winner. And I think that there was a missed 2-point conversion in there. I saw like it was just a lot of wonky stuff going on to make sure Kentucky didn't cover that game. So I was
Leave
like,
the fucking points on the field.
yeah, so that was stupid. But yeah, Tennessee continuing to Tennessee, UCLA getting.
I feel like UCLA's been in and out of the top 25 like 5 different times this year.
Yeah, that's just who they are. This week they're going to get to play Arizona though, so we'll see if they stay ranked or if Arizona gets ranked because of beating them. Or that's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. It might be entertaining. I'm not sure if that's. I'm thinking this would be a 9 o'clock start. Yeah, 9:30 start. So yeah.
Did you see UCLA? Or I'm sorry, Colorado had their locker room broken into at UCLA?
No, I didn't.
Players had like phones, jewelry, wallets, money, all that shit stolen from them.
That's unfortunate. That's annoying.
Maybe it's just a Dion publicity stunt.
Yeah, maybe. I doubt it.
Tulane moving up 1. Your boys are non-power 5 sticking around to the 21. 22 is Kansas kind of staying put, another basketball school. And 23, James Madison moving up 2 spots, officially jumping USC.
Yeah.
Love to see it.
Kansas was not ranked coming into last week. They are now ranked, so they jumped up quite a bit from where they were.
I thought they thought they were in the 20s last week as well.
No, they were not ranked.
Oh, pardon myself.
They're fine. It's cool. But yeah, Kansas is now ranked because of the way that they handled Oklahoma. Hopefully they finish the season strong there. James Madison, ranked number 23. We've been talking about them. We'll continue to watch them as they are a very talented team, but could be a season with no postseason for them because of some weird, wonky rules that they got out there.
Fucking old white people in the NCAA.
USC staying put at 24. I want to say, USC almost lost this week. How they pulled it out, was literally just pure luck. Late going for 2 that failed on the California side, and instead of taking the points to make it go into overtime, I don't think they wanted to have to play their defense against Caleb Williams anymore, knowing that USC was just scoring at will at that point because of the way they played in that fourth quarter. I mean, they were down. They were down 43-29 late in that game, and USC ended up coming back and winning it. So next week USC gets Washington. So what USC is either going to come away and have a win that redeems their season, or
they're really going to shuffle the Pac-12 up.
Yeah, or they're going to fall out of the top 25 altogether. So definitely something to keep an eye on. This, and it could be a possibility that Caleb Williams starts thinking about not playing any more games if they lose next week. So
I know he did come out and say he wasn't planning on it, but maybe what he meant was he wasn't planning on it this early in the year.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that he'd want to play the UCLA game just because that's a rivalry game, and a lot of people pride themselves on that one. So maybe he plays that game if they lose, but can't see him playing in a postseason without a Pac-12 title game on the line. So
no.
And then Kansas State. Wow, all of a sudden this team,
Cam Ward never dies.
This team just has come out of nowhere and gotten really good all of a sudden. So they're ranked 25 now. They've become a really tough team for a lot of opponents. They destroyed Houston this past week, which I did not see coming. They're definitely a team that can mix things up in the Big 12 going forward throughout the rest of the season. So keep an eye out for them. They just blew out the last 2 weeks. They have outscored their opponents 82-3. So they play Texas next week. That's going to be a dandy of a game at 11 a.m. on Saturday morning. So something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, these upcoming weeks could really shake a lot of shit up in both the Pac-12 and the Big 12.
Yeah, it should be fun to see.
Other teams receiving votes, Oklahoma State still trying to crawl back. They had 77, North Carolina 54, Liberty third out at 47, Fresno State fourth out 16. Miami's still doing Miami shit with 11, Arizona 6, Toledo 3, and Rutgers got 2.
Yeah, go Rutgers.
Yeah, I know you love your Rutgers.
But yeah, we'll see. Next week, we'll break it down on Friday for you all because there's a lot to look at. Don't even want to attempt to even get into it because it is going to be a week of shakeups, and I'm even looking forward at the schedule after next week. It's go time. It's the best time of year. The weather has turned. I know that the cold is everybody's favorite, but it's football weather, and these games are getting pretty meaningful and very serious. It's good. It should be a fun end to the season.
Man, I love my kids, don't get me wrong, but I really love sitting in my garage when it's 48 degrees out watching football.
Yesterday was too cold for me, and I started to feel like crap because of the weather. So it's kind of in that in between of are we able to stay outside anymore, or
right, stay outside till the sun goes down, maybe.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes forward. Hopefully we could get another day or two outside and enjoy garage weather, because I am not the biggest fan of sitting inside on Saturdays or Sundays either.
Right. So before we wrap it up here, how'd you do this week betting wise?
Not bad. It was a very interesting week in general. I had picked 2 MAC games actually, which is something that I have started to do now, is feature at least 1 MAC game per week over the last couple of weeks. And I had 2 of them that I did pick, and one of them being the Eastern Michigan and Western Michigan game, which I completely failed on. Eastern Michigan looked like complete crap at home against Western Michigan. So things have kind of stayed the same there in terms of that matchup every year. Houston and Kansas State didn't go my way either, because Kansas State won 41-0. And then Georgia and Florida didn't go my way because Georgia freaking handled Florida, and that's why Florida's been put on the expelled list. But what did go well, we had Oregon and Utah. I had Oregon -6.5, getting a big win. Pretty easy one. I had Miami, Ohio +7.5. I told everyone this team is possibly going to pull off an upset here, and they won it straight out. So I did put money on the +240 money line, and that paid out. I did put money on the spread as well. So a good little chunk of pay there in terms of my week from Miami, Ohio, handling Ohio in the MAC. I also had Colorado +17. Colorado covered. They won by 12, or they lost by 12. They kept it close the whole way. Even when it got to 12, it wasn't really that close at all. So Colorado with a nice cover for us there. And then I had Nebraska covering against Purdue, and Nebraska was no doubt an easy cover against Purdue there. Kind of one of those shocking lines. So with the Liberty bet early on in the week, a 5-3 week. It's the positivity.
Nice.
So we'll have to see how that ends up going forward for me. I already have been looking ahead at next week. There's quite a few games that are sticking out like a sore thumb, actually. I feel like I kind of have to put the bets in. I might put them all in tomorrow after I see how the NFL slate goes for me betting-wise tonight, as I still haven't made any bets yet, but I'll put in something once Amon-Ra is told if he's in or out. I know that he's sick, so could be a difference maker, but I want to lock in some of these bets early because I've noticed some fluctuation with Notre Dame already, where Notre Dame was -3. Now they're already down to -2.5, which is great. I don't know how the numbers go down.
That's got to be the Mitch Evans news.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I even There was something else that I liked. Ole Miss -3 against Texas A&M is out there. Ole Miss at home. There was Missouri getting 16 points against Georgia. You know, there's some interesting matchups out there. Definitely early in the week that I'm seeing. Even James Madison might make a bet. Another one that's out there that I think that people should look at right now is Kansas is a 2.5 point underdog to Iowa State.
What?
Yeah. So, and also
Iowa State, besides for one whack job ass game, has been nothing short of trash this year.
Iowa State now is 4-1 in the Big 12. They beat Baylor last week 30-18. They beat Cincinnati the week before 30-10, and they beat TCU the week before that 27-14.
These aren't good teams.
Yeah, but you know what? They're doing enough to sit there and be in the conversation with Oklahoma.
This team's going to go to a fucking bowl over James Madison.
Yeah, well, definitely. That's yeah.
Last week I got back into the win column. I'm now improved 7-2, I believe. South Carolina covered.
Yeah,
I had them at +17. I think they lost by 13.
So. Yeah, good to see that you were able to get it back. You know, sometimes when you go on losing streaks, I
was getting nervous because we've all been on a losing streak before, and they usually don't snap after just 2.
No, I mean, I was so good at betting early on in the season, and I turned to crap. So I'm hoping that this is how we're going to ride out the rest of the season is good picks going forward. Not going to take too many more L's, but I mean, of what I've seen so far, I think there's 3 of them that I am like, oh my God, this just seems too good to be true. I don't understand like the Iowa State Kansas thing just because Iowa State's at home. Iowa State has been playing a lot better, but I don't know, man. Like Kansas is.
I'm gonna throw some money on Kansas. I'll deposit back in a DraftKings for that.
It might be another one where you're looking at that money line just because it is plus money right now, and
right. I mean, what's the point of even getting the 2 points when I think they're going to win outright?
Yeah. So we'll see. I'll throw that down on Friday for sure.
Yeah. We'll be back with more bets, more previews, and more fun on Friday. Bruno, you got anything else for us?
No. Just wanted to commemorate one more time our victory over Brian Ferentz. You know, it's kind of.
I'll see you in hell, Brian.
Yeah, that's the end of an era. You couldn't beat.
It only took us like 2 months to get him out of the job. I mean,
it's incredible the power that we have over everything. So
the influence is unrivaled.
Yeah, Zach Nat, good to see you in the comments there. Always someone who talks to us during the show. Joe, thank you, buddy. Pat, thank you. Tony, thank you. Everybody, you know, this is what we like to see. People getting involved in our chat room, asking us any questions. You know, I want to talk about Northwestern because of a question we had a couple of weeks ago. And we'll watch some of
the bowl game, right? The bowl game question.
You know, they got 4 games left. Looks like they are on their way to qualifying for a bowl game. We'll see how they continue to play throughout the season. But yeah, other than that, I'm all good. We'll be back on Friday.
All right, everybody, have a happy Halloween. Enjoy your week. Don't work too hard. This has been College Football on Tap, brought to you by the On Tap Sportsnet. Good night.